My house is still underwater. There are a lot of snakes and reptiles. The place is still a river. It's no longer home. So how can I go back?
Hello everyone. Thanks for watching. And as always, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, Kurte TV. This video, as you may have noticed from Nyawal's recollection of her state of despair, is about state responsibility to citizens. In 1996, Dr. Francis Mading Deng, who was the United Nations Special Advisor for the Prevention of Genocide between May 29, 2007 and July 17, 2012, published a book, Sovereignty as Responsibility, Conflict Management in Africa, with Sidiki Kimaro, Terence Lyons, Donald Rothschild, and I. William Zadman, through the Brookings Institution. So what is sovereignty as responsibility? Here's Dr. Francis Mading Deng explaining what sovereignty as responsibility is.
And the idea was to tell governments, I realize this is an internal matter, it falls under your sovereignty, I'm respectful of your sovereignty, but I don't see sovereignty as a negative concept. I see it as a positive concept of state responsibility for its people, if need be with the help of the international community.
So, what does this mean in the context of South Sudanese state and its responsibility to its citizens? Did the South Sudanese government and its leaders consider sovereignty as responsibility, or have they rationalized it as power to intimidate civilians, enrich themselves with state resources, and terrorize critics, however factually accurate these critics are regarding the situation? To answer this question, let us go back to July 2011. What did South Sudanese leaders think, and what did citizens feel? Here is a glimpse.
A nation is born. The symbol of its sovereignty and identity flies for the first time. The scene in South Sudan is nothing less than electric. Hundreds of thousands of people converge on Juba, the world's newest capital city. They celebrate their long-awaited independence, marked by 2 civil wars over 5 decades and countless lives lost.
The people were understandably ecstatic, for the leaders at the time understood the challenge they faced, but they promised to lead, provide for citizens, and prove South Sudanese distractors, according to President Kiir, wrong. Here is President Kiir on July 9, 2011. My dear compatriots, South Sudanese, the eyes of the world are on you. Our well wishes, including those who are now sharing with us the joy of this tremendous event, will be watching closely to see if our very first steps in nationhood are steady and confident. They will surely want to see us as a worthwhile member of the international community by shunning policies that may draw us into confrontation with others. They will be happy to see us succeed economically and want us to enjoy political stability. What this means is that the responsibilities of South Sudan will now be accentuated more than ever before, requiring that we rise to the challenge accordingly. It is my ardent belief that you are aware that our distractors have already written us off, even before the proclamation of our independence. They say we will slip into civil war as soon as our flag is hoisted. They justify that by arguing we are incapable of resolving our problem through dialogue. They charge that we are quick to revert to violence. They claim that our concept of democracy and freedom is faulty. It is incumbent upon us to prove them all wrong. What happened 2 years later is something for which I'm not going to remind you by way of explanation. Sovereignty became a quest for power rather than a responsibility to citizens.
This used to be a road until it disappeared underwater mid last year. Now the only way to get around in this part of South Sudan is by boats and canoes. It's the worst flood this region has seen in 60 years. In this area, every home is abandoned. Families had no choice but to leave.
Flood is obviously a naturally occurring phenomenon. South Sudanese leaders did not cause it, but they have a responsibility to support citizens that have been displaced by the flood. They have failed. But that's not all. Here's John Kwok suffering from what President Kiir said would not happen. It seems like the distractors sadly have been proven right.
It was not only 2013, where our colleagues, my brother, will kill it. Even during this struggle, my brothers, they were also killed. So when it repeats itself, it was horrible.
Contrary to President Kiir's assurance on Independence Day, South Sudanese were quick to revert to violence. However, crises are everywhere. The main problem is their inability to solve problems and their penchant for abdication of state responsibility. Here is South Sudan's Minister of Information and the government spokesperson, Michael McQuay, about the challenges facing South Sudan's peace partners regarding the integration of government and the opposition armies as stipulated in the revitalized agreement for the resolution of conflict in South Sudan.
I said this agreement was not to be implemented, as I said it earlier, because the international community, the very international community that supported us and gave us the assurances that you signed this agreement, we will stand with you and we will implement it with you. Just immediately after signature, they sat back and began to tell us, you implement. You must be seen to be moving. We asked them, as said by my colleague, Stephen, we asked them to come for our support. Only very few friendly countries managed to do something for us.
But here is Francis Mading Deng, reminding governments about their responsibility to citizens.
And it also meant that responsibility had to be apportioned or reapportioned. Instead of depending on the superpowers, the states had to assume their responsibility for managing their situations. And if they need help, to call on the international community to help. And only in the extreme cases where there's large suffering, massive amount of suffering and death.
There's no doubt that South Sudan faces enormous challenges 12 years after independence. My advice to South Sudanese leaders is to prioritize the interests of citizens and regard sovereignty as responsibility bestowed upon them by 1. The referendum vote, 2. The suffering of our people by 50 years of the liberation struggle, and 3. By the blood of those who died in the liberation struggle. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, please subscribe. See you in the next video.